let's start with the lecture, and you can ask questions towards the end again. And in fact, I think today lectures hopefully will be helpful for your assignment. That this whole lecture is designed to show you how to solve certain type of problems that you have quite a bit, actually a lot, and probably the harder problems that you have on assignment are going to, what we're going to see today should help you with that, should put you in a good standing to try solve problems like this. So I'm going to try to mimic one of the problems, not one of the problems. I invented a problem that looked like something that could have been on this assignment, and we're going to solve it together. My plan was to then, after that, to start with the lists, but in previous class, we didn't get to the list. So I think it was too ambitious what I was planning for today. At least for you guys, I know that what we're going to do today is really just solve problems on strings where you have to do not just trivial things, okay? And there's quite a bit of similar things that you have, and you're going to see quite a bit of tools that you're going to need both in part one and even more, well, in both actually, part one and all of these encrypting things in part two. Okay, so let's first start with looking at how else you can loop over the elements of a sequence, okay? Because that's actually what we are going to use, and that's actually what is more powerful in many ways, and what I suggest you use in your assignment. Or whenever you're not sure what type of loop you use, I suggest you use this one that we're gonna see, that I'm gonna show you just now. Okay, so let me start with, I prepared some code. Not students, lectures 9, section B should be here somewhere. All right. Okay, I'm gonna leave this. All right, so I'm gonna move this to the bottom such that it doesn't distract us, because that's actually the problem that we're gonna solve. But before we do, let's see what are the this is the kind of a loop over elements of a string that we studied in last 2 lectures. And you have seen that if we call this function with okay, that it goes through the character of a sequence of a string one by one, and it prints them. Okay, so this is what we have seen the last time. And the way it works is that characters of S are put in variable ch. One character of S is put in variable ch, then you enter the loop, do whatever the body of the loop says, come back, take next element, puts it in ch, enter the loop, and so on. Okay, so we have seen this before. But what if I said something like, okay, actually, I don't want every character, I want every single character. You can solve it with this type of loop. But you would have to kind of do it manually, put some counters such that you can keep track. Are you entering the loop even number of time or odd number of time? And then this counter you would test, is it odd or an even? And in case it's odd, you print it. In case it's even, you don't, and something like this. So somehow in a little bit of pedestrian way, you can do it, but it's not the most, you can do it. But let me just show you actually that there is a better tool. That's where I'm heading. So basically you have a choice of how you're going to, what you're going to loop over. This type of loop just says, in this type of loop, we are saying, I want to loop over the characters of a string. But let's figure out what we want to do for this problem. I'm saying, let's print every second character. Somehow in the nature of this problem, it feels like you should know your position in a string. Like if I'm here and printing this one, I should jump to a position 2 later and print that one. And now in this position, I jump to position 2 later and print that one. So it seems that it would be useful if we knew the positions in the string when we are doing this. So what do I mean by this? Even before we learned about the loop, let's say we have a string like, what did I have? Let's do something shorter like today. I don't know why I'm always doing today. And before we even learned how to do the loops, one of the things we learned is that by doing s of 0, you get the first character of the string, you get s of 1, gets you, in this case, you use indexing to access individual positions in the string. Okay, so we could have, if I really knew that my string has exactly 5 characters, I could do something like this, print s of 0. If I wanted to print characters one by one in a new line, print, then s of 1, I'm not going to be doing print, next line, print s of 2, print s of 3, and print s of 4, and we are done. So we have a string with 5 characters, and we access the first character by using index 0, access the second by using index 1, and so on. Okay, so that is what a problem that will solve, a solution that will solve this problem if we knew that this string has exactly 5 characters. Okay, but in general, why would we know something like this? We cannot assume such a thing. So let's see, how do we write a solution like this? That I'm really accessing individual positions in the string, but I'm doing print s of, and I'm actually have a position in the string. I want that type of a solution. Okay, let's do a version 2 of this. So what do I want again? I want characters one by one, but I want to do print s of 0. When I'm printing the first character, I want it to actually be executing print s of 0, s of 1, and so on. So what do I want? Let me mimic what it says here. When I enter the loop, I have this string s. I want to print this s square brackets, and let's say I is an integer. And first time I enter the loop, I want this I to be 0 because I want to first print s of 0. Next time, so I'm going to remove these things because this is not, we don't know yet what's there. Okay, so what do I want? I want first time I enter the loop that this is 0, the I is 0. Next time I enter the loop, I want I to be 1 because then it's going to print second character. Next time I enter the loop, I want I to be 2. So what I want, here's a comment for us. I want I to be first 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, in case when len of s is equal to 5. Okay. So what do I want to loop over? We have seen a function in Python that produces this sequence. Okay, so I want I to be changing from 0 to 1 to 2 and so on. So what I do, I have a variable I. So I do 4 and I name that variable I. I stands for index. You can name it whatever you want. It can be blah, and then I'm going to put blah here. Okay, but I is the convention, so I'm going to stick to that. Okay, so I want to loop over a sequence of numbers now, not sequence of characters, because I want to be looping over this sequence such that when I come to this line, I'm printing s of 0, s of 1. And not only that, I actually know every time I enter the loop, I know my position in the string. I'm looping over the positions, if you like. Okay, so I'm doing for I in, and now I want to produce this sequence 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in case when a string has 5 characters. We have learned in the last class that the function range in Python that it produces such numbers. In fact, if you give it just one integer, it's going to start at 0 and go up to that integer. So if I have a string s, I want to produce what are the indices that I want to produce? I want to start with 0. I want to go next one 1, next one 2. When do I want to stop? What is the last index that I want to produce last number in the sequence that I want to produce if I want to print every single character? Well, the last index is len of s minus 1. Remember that for every string, we start indexing x0, therefore the last element is not at len of s, it's at len of s minus 1. So for example, when len of s is 5, when we have 5 characters, the indices are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here you look at it, 0, 1, 2, 3, len of s, 5 minus 1 is 4. Okay, so we want to produce this sequence. So start at 0, and this is the last one we produce. Therefore, in the range function, we should say produce the numbers up to len of s. Remember, range of number is going to produce exactly the sequence that we want. So it's going to stop before producing len of s, right? So it's not going to produce 5 here in case len of s is 5. Okay, so let's see what's happening with this. So these two solutions are identical. Let's first run them, and then I'm going to look at it. All right, let me actually call this version 2. And they are both doing the same thing. They're solving exactly the same problem. So let me call version 2. And you see it prints characters of S one by one. The difference is just you are looping over what sequence. So here we are looping over the elements or characters of a string. Here we are looping over a sequence of integers, and these integers represent indices that we are going to use to access the string. So S of, when first time you enter the loop, I is going to be 0, so this is S of 0. Next time you enter the loop, I takes the next number in the sequence, which is 1. You enter the loop, it prints S of 1, and so on until it produces the last element in the sequence, which is len of S minus 1. In our example, that was 4. You print S of 4. We are done with this sequence, and we are out of the loop. Okay, so let's now go back to the question that I asked, that I use as motivation to introduce, to be looping over the sequence of integers, or looping over the indices, if you like. It was, let's print every second character. As I said, here you would somehow have to then keep track yourself, where are you in your string, okay, by adding some counter and testing and stuff like this. What about here? Let's first understand, what do we want? So I want every second character. So I want first that you print first character. So that's S of 0. Then I don't want to print S of 1 because I'm skipping it. I'm doing every second ones. And then I'm printing S of 2. Then I don't want to print S of 3. Therefore, I'm printing S of 4. So what do we see here? I want to print, first time I enter the loop, I want I to be 0. Next time I enter the loop, I want I to be 2. Next time I enter the loop, I want I to be 4. So for the problem that I'm saying print every second. So for the problem that I want to print every second character, the sequence that I want here is not 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? It's 0, 2, 4, 6. So first time I enter the loop, I want number 0. Next time I enter the loop, I want 2. Next time I enter the loop, I want 4. Next time I enter the loop, I want 6, and so on, okay? So instead of this sequence, I want range function to produce this sequence, okay? We have seen how to do that. We have seen that there is a version of range function where you can say start at 0, go up to this number. And instead of going in steps of 1, so from 0 plus 1 is 1, plus 1 is 2, go in steps of 2. 0 plus 2 is 2, plus 2 is 4, plus 2 is 6, and so on. So we give 3 integers to range function. First one is 0, next one is stopping, where you stop, number that you stop, and then you give a step. How big of a steps do you take? So let's see if that solves the problems that we want. All right. What did I want here? Oh, I have to give it, this is a crash because I didn't give it an argument. I have to give it a string. Thanks. Giving. Okay, so it prints the first character T, then every second one, next one is A, then it skips, it's K, G, V, N. Okay, so somehow in the description of this problem, we are thinking that I should know where I am. If I want to say, I want to print every second one, if in the description of your problem or if in your description of your solution, when you are describing for yourself, let's say on pen and paper, you're describing and you realize that position in whatever you're looping over is important for you, then you should use this type of loop where you are looping over indices. So you're going to use a range function to produce the positions rather than looping over the characters. Rather than looping over the elements of the sequence. So when should you use something over the elements of a sequence? Really, if you don't care really of position. Let's say I give you a list of numbers and we didn't see a list yet, but list of numbers and you want to add them up. You really don't care that you are currently the third or fourth. You just want them one by one. So if you want to loop over the elements of a sequence, that's all you care about, then use this form where you are directly taking elements of a sequence one by one. Pretty much in all the other situations, if you're unsure what to use, I would say use over the indices. It may be a little bit, it looks a little bit more technical, but at the same time, I want to say it's more powerful, but it's actually not true. Whatever you can code with one, you can code with the other, but the question is an ease and how natural it is to solve a problem. Okay, so I think that's all that I wanted to say about the introduction to the problem that I actually wanted to solve. Okay, so here's a problem. It sounds like some of the things you have to do in your assignment. All right, so let me look at my notes to see if there was something else that I want to show you before that. No, that is all. Okay, so here's the problem I want to solve. It's going to be one of those encrypting things. I give you a text or a string and you have to scramble it, reverse some stuff, add some symbols such that it doesn't look recognizable. Okay, so here's what I want. Okay, so I'm going to push this down. So it's not in our way. Let's understand what I want. So let's say you're given a string. So you're given, if you're talking to a human, you say you're given text and I want your program to scramble it. So it returns text scramble. So given a string, returns scramble. So what is the scrambling algorithm or what do I want you to do with this string? All right, so let me explain on an example. Let's say we have a string A, B, C, D, E, F. Here's what I want. I want you to take first two characters, basically to pair characters. First two, then the next two, then the next two. So in this case, I first take AB, the next pair is CD, and the next pair is EF. For now, put it on the side, what if the string has odd number of characters? For now, assume we're gonna get to that. Let's imagine you have a string with even number of characters. I take first two, then the next two, then the next two, and so on. I pair them if you like. Okay, so what your scrambling algorithm should do, it should, for each pair, it should first reverse it. Okay, so here let's understand. So if you give me this, if this is given, I want your algorithm or your program to produce the following result. I want this scrambled text. Okay, I take a first pair, A, B, and I reverse it. So each pair you need to reverse. BC reversed, AB reversed is BA. What is the next pair? CD. CD reversed is DC. What is the next pair? EF reversed is FE. Okay, so if I didn't tell you anything else, if your job was to pair the elements and reverse them, pair consecutive elements and reverse them, we would be done. But in addition to that, I have another rule that says for every pair, right after that pair, you need to put either a star or an @ symbol. How do you determine that? You put a star if the pair has a vowel. I just invented this, but, you know, to try to use some of the things that we did. And I want you to put a @ symbol if otherwise, if it doesn't have a vowel. So the pair before that. Otherwise, you're gonna use an @ So I take a first pair, reverse it. I ask myself, does it have a vowel? This one does. In that case, I want to start there. I take a next pair, CD, I reverse it. I get a DC. Then I ask myself, does it have a vowel? No, so it should have, I'm going to have to put @ to it. Then I take a next pair, it's EF, I reverse it, it's FE. I ask myself, does it have a vowel? Does, and I put a star. I try to take a next pair, it's not there, we are done. Okay, so hopefully what your algorithm, what your solution should produce is clear. So you get, you pair consecutive elements, you need to reverse each pair, and after each pair, you either put a star or an @ sign, depending if the pair has a vowel or it doesn't have a vowel. Okay, so it's a star if it has a vowel, and it's an @ if it doesn't have a vowel. Okay. All right, hopefully that's clear based on the example. All right, so let's now understand. You may have a question, wait a minute, what are we going to assume that the number of characters is even? My answer is no. I'm going to give you a rule. I'm giving you the rule. What should happen if you have odd number of characters? So let's look at this one here. What I want simply, if there's odd number of character, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, okay, so this one has odd number of character, I want you to do exactly the same thing, you pairing them, and at some point, you get to G, which doesn't have a pair. What I want in that case is just to put that character, that leftover character, without anything else, no reversing, no stars. So hopefully it's clear, right? So you do your job for those who have pairs, and for that leftover character, you just glue it at the end, like I did here. Okay, let's consider, but that actually even implies what happens if you have a string of one character, right? Then the whole thing is a leftover. So if you have, what you're given is something like a string that has one or less character, then you just return the string itself. Okay, so in this case, result is you just return string itself. So these are the rules. Okay, I hope this is clear. Otherwise, we can't move on. Hope the game is easy. This is an easy game for you guys. But let's now code this. All right. So what do I want? I want a function. I'm going to copy paste the name because I want to stick to the names that I was using. All right. And it's kind of a long name because I was trying to use meaningful name. Flip consecutive disjoint pairs. What does it mean, disjoint? I'm taking here AB as a pair. I'm not taking then BC because then AB and BC are overlapping, right? So I'm taking a first pair, then I'm really taking the next pair, and then I'm really taking the next pair. Flip consecutive pairs and some, right? That's the name of your function. So input is a string. And output is also a string because I'm asking you, give me a string, I'm going to return you a string that is scrambled. So output, your type contract is like this. I'm going to put this quote so it's clear that we're in a doc string. Okay, then I'm not going to put a description of what it does. Given a string, it returns a scrambled string. You've seen the rules. But I will put this in a form of examples. This thing above, I actually have a few examples, right? They are basically examples where if your input is this, how do I want function to behave? If your input is this, I want to get this, right? if your input is letter G was here, then your output was G there, and if your input has only 1 or 0 characters, then you return exactly that same string. Okay. Okay, so we have example cases as well. All right, I'm just going to leave this rule up there because these examples are now part of our description. Okay, so let's try to solve this. All right. So let's do the easy thing first. And so we just get rid of it, even we don't have to worry about it anymore. The easy thing is if a string has 1 or less characters, let's just get rid of that case and just return it because there's nothing to do, right? If length of s, by the way, you should really know this length function, those of you who are new. Those of you who are not for sure, you know this, the length of a, you're gonna use length of a string, length of a list all the time. Okay, so if length of a string is less than or equal to 1, we just return s, return string itself. Okay, so that was explained in the rules. By the way, for something like this, handling of a small characters, small situations, before we get to solving small problems, you can, for one-way if statement, if you really have something short, you can even put it in 1 line. Okay, so Python understands this. In this case, I even think it's more readable. It's just like if you get something trivial, let's get rid of that first. So now we know that if you ever get to this line here that I marked, that your string has at least 2 characters. Remember that a function, once it returns, it terminates the function. So if the string is length 1 or 0, you're never going to get to this line. So if we get to this line, it means the string has length at least 2. Okay. So let's try to think of how we're going to construct this new string. All right, so let's see what we were doing here in an example, A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, so let's say I want to do this. I say take a first, I'm creating a new string. So a new one goes here. I take first pair, A, B, I reverse it. So I'm adding a new pair. I reverse the pair and add it to the new string. And then I add a special character. In this case, it's BA. All right. Then I take a next string, CD, reverse it. That's DC. And then I add a special character. That depends if I have a vowel or not, and so on. But notice this. At the beginning, I had nothing. It was an empty string. All right. So even in English, you start with an empty text, you take first 2 characters, you reverse them first and add them to your new string. So what you begin with is you're going to say, I'm going to start with an empty string. This is the string that I'm going to be building. So in a number of your questions in assignment number 3, you're going to have to do this, like you're building something. So the most natural thing to start with, of course, it depends, many things depends on a problem, but this is if you're building a string from scratch, then start from an empty string. Okay, all right. But it could be that you start with something a little bit different, depending again on what you, but this is the most common thing because it naturally appears in problems. Okay, so I start, let's understand again what we want. I want to take first and second character and add them to the new string. Then I want to take third and fourth character, do something and add them to the new string. Okay. Since I have to kind of go through all the characters of the string, obviously I'm going to need a loop for that. In addition, based on what I'm saying I want a first and second character, then I want third and fourth. My description involves a position. Okay, so I better loop over the positions. And again, if you're uncertain, loop over the positions. Okay. All right. So although I'm reluctant to give that example because sometimes the other one is easier. It really depends what you are solving. Okay, so let's for now say I'm really just going to copy paste what professor gave us for looping over the positions. This doesn't mean that this is correct, right? But let's see what do we get for now. Let's start with this. Okay, so I'm going to loop over the positions. Let me try to figure out. So let's say I'm trying to figure out, and always have an example in your mind, it helps. Okay, try to understand what happens when I enter the loop first time. What do I want to happen? Let's say that I'm working with this string in my head, all right? So what do I want? I want that when I enter the loop, first time I enter the loop, I is going to be 0. So remember, this range and sequence produces integer 0. This one here, this form produces 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So first time I enter the loop, I is 0. So what do I want to do first time? I want to take element in position 0 and element in position, not and, this is binary. I want to be doing something with this. I'm looking at element in position 0 and element in position 1. But first time I enter the loop, I is 0. Okay, so first time I'll enter the loop, I'm looking at S of I, which is S of 0. And then whenever I'm looking at element S of I, I'm telling you take two elements, right? So if I'm taking S of I, where is the next element? That means next element is in position S of I plus 1. So I want to be working with two elements, two characters. When I enter the loop, I'm working with S of I, and then I'm working with S of I plus 1. So what is that? When at the very beginning, let's get the beginning working for the first two letters. At the very first time I enter the loop, I is 0. So this is S of 0. So that's letter A. This is S of 0 plus 1 is 1. So we really are looking at the two characters that I want. All right. And what did we say we want? I want to take these two characters and add them to the new string, but not in the order that S of I comes first and S of I plus 1 comes second. I want reverse order. Okay, so we just do that. What do I want? I want to take this string that I'm building at the very beginning. First time we enter the loop, it's an empty string. So this is an empty string plus I have these two characters, S of 0 and S of 1, but I want S of 1 to come first and S of 0 to come second. So that's what I do. I glue first S of I plus 1, and then I glue S of I. Okay, and that's going to be my new string. Okay, so what am I doing here? I take first the second character, then the one before it, and glue them to the new string. So let's see on an example. When I is 0, and if this was our string, first time we encounter this loop, I take 0 because range produces sequence 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We enter and we do empty string plus S of 1. What's S of 1? That's a B. Plus S of 0. What's that? That's A. So what do we get? We get empty string plus B plus A. So that produces a string BA. So we get exactly what we want. So after we enter the loop for the first time and this line is executed, we get exactly what we want, what we were writing down. We get BA. Now you ask yourself, what do I want next? Well, what you want next is to test if this pair, BA, does it have a vowel? Okay. Here's a different way to write this. I can say I'm creating a new string. This is just for readability purposes. I'm going to create a new string where the characters are reverse. And I'm going to add that new string. So what is this? Okay, so add first the second character, then the first character. I'm going to get a string BA, and I'm going to store it in temp because I need a string later. I need a pair later. Oh, actually, let me call it pair. That's a better name. Then I add pair. Okay, so I reverse it. In fact, I'll call it reverse pair, R pair for reverse pair. Okay, so that's the same code. So we achieved that my new string now, my new string is BA. I achieved that at this line. First time we entered the loop. So we said the next thing I have to do is test in this pair, in this reverse pair. I don't like R pair. Let me call it a pair. Okay. I want to test in this pair, does it have a vowel? Okay. So for that, because we did this so much in the last class, I'm going to make a little function. It sounds like this is how in general you should be building things. You think, okay, at some point, I have a pair, basically I have a string, and I need to test, does it have a vowel? Well, that sounds like a thing. I should have a little function that tests if something is a vowel, and we've done that in the last class. So I prepared that. Let me add it. I'm not going to explain that because we did it many versions of this in the last two classes, right? So what does this do? Given a string, it returns a Boolean that returns true or false, returns true if S has a vowel and false otherwise. Okay, so we have here, like we've seen, a loop going of the elements of a string. Each time you take a character from the string, you test, is it one of the vowels? If it is, you can immediately return true. There's no point in continuing to loop. Otherwise, if you go through all the elements of the string and you never return this true, it means that none of the characters are vowels. That means you're going to reach this line here and you're going to return false. Okay, I'm not going to spend more time on this. We've done this in the last class. So what I need to do now to determine if now that I got B and A, remember what we have to do next? I have to glue a special character, either star or an at. I should glue a star if this function, so I sent my pair to this function to test, does it have a vowel? So if that function returns true, then I should glue a star. Okay, so that means the pair has a vowel. So far, the new string has BA, and I should just add to the new string, I should concatenate a star to the new string, and that becomes my new string. Otherwise, I add an @ sign. Okay, so we coded that part. At the end of this if statement, we should have, in case of BA, here we would get a true, that a pair, because pair we are looking at, so this creates a pair here. First time we enter the loop, that is BA. So it has a vowel, so a star would be created here. So after the first entrance into the loop, we would have that NS is BA star. That's what NS is at the end of this loop. All right. By the way, let me show you that this part here is not needed at all. This function returns true. And remember that Python, if statements, if you have true here, is going to get executed. So you don't have to do this equal true. If this function returns true, this is the same. If true, if it returns true, then this is going to be executed. Otherwise, this is going to be executed. So you don't need that equal true part for the functions that return true or false. Okay, so it's working for first two characters. Okay, why don't we be super optimistic and think, okay, the whole loop is now working, and let me return this a new string and see what happens. Let's make a little break here and see. Let's pick our first example. Actually, let's do an example really on, let's see if our program is correct for on a strings of length 2. Okay. Hey, it's working for strings of length 2. We achieved something. It also should be working on strings of length 1 because that is this trivial first line, and on strings of length 0. Okay, we got something. Let's see what happens if we have B, C, D, E, F. That was our running example. We should get something like this. And it's, am I running the correct program here? Just a second. All right. Ah, I'm calling something else here. Where is this print thing? All right. Okay, I know what it is. I have 2 functions with the same name. I'm going to have to delete all of this. I have 2 functions with the same name, so it's running the one that I completed. I know that this shouldn't be working. All right, so now we should be, so now we only have those prints. All right, good. All right, so now let's run it. All right, so now it's actually printing these eyes that I wanted. So let's remove that. Now we know that we are running the correct function. And let's indeed make sure it did it work on 2 letters. Okay, I don't think it should even work on 2 letters. All right, we'll figure out why. It certainly does work because the first line takes over in the cases when we have this. Oh, sorry, when we have 0, 1 characters. Okay, so let's figure out what's the first issue. Let's try to figure out what happens next. So next time, so far we were just executing what we did when I is 0. All right, so I 0, we get first and second character and we reverse it. Okay, we can even print NS at this point and see that indeed we achieved what we wanted. It's going to crash after that. What did I have here? Let's say A, B, and indeed you see we achieved what we wanted. Okay, so next time we enter the loop, I is 1, because that's the sequence we asked Python to produce for us. So let's see what happens. We come inside and you do, what are we adding? It says take S of 1 and S of 2. S of 1 is B, so we are taking B again. So what this does, it takes A, B, then it takes B, C, but that's not what we want. Next time, so let's understand what we do want. Okay, so let's write a little notes for ourselves. What do I want? I want first time I enter the loop, I want to be looking at S of 0 and S of 1. That's what I want, right? So I want I to be 0. Then next time I enter the loop, I want to be looking at S2 and S3, so which is C and D here. Next time I enter the loop, so I want I to be 2. Next time I want to enter the loop, I want to be looking at S of 3 and S of 4, and so on. Sorry, not S of 3 and S of 4. S of 3 we already looked at. S of my pairs are, so the pairs are S of 0, S of 1, S of 2, S of 3, S of 4, S of 5, and so on. So first time I enter the loop, I want I to be 0. Next time I enter the loop, I want I to be 2, not 1. Next time I enter the loop, I want I to be 4. So the sequence that I want range function to produce is 0, 2, 4. Meet, and please hold on your question. I'm going to take it at the end. remember it. So the sequence that I want to produce here for i's, first time I enter the loop, I want a 0. Next time I enter the loop, I want a 2. Next time I enter the loop, I want a 4, 6, and so on. Okay, so I want range function to produce a sequence 0, 2, 4, 6, or I'll take the questions at the end. Please remember your question. Okay, so how do we've seen how to do this. So I want to start with 0. I want to go up to the last index, and I want to go in steps of 2. Okay, so let's see if that fixed it, fixed everything, or maybe something. All right, I'm going to remove these notes. Actually, maybe this one I will. Okay, so let's run this. All right, so let's see if it works for 2 characters. A, B, it works now. It didn't crash. What about our full example? A, B, C, D, E, F. A, B, C, D, E, F. It works for that. AB is BA, CD is DC, FE is FE. And indeed, BA has a vowel, so we have a star. DC it doesn't have, so we have an at, and FE has a vowel, so we have a star. Okay, so let's do this. A, B, C, D, E, F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, it seems to be working fine. But let's see if we tested everything. Look, we didn't. We have to figure out, does it work for the case when we have odd number of characters. All my examples have even number of characters. So let's take the example that I have here and see what we get. Do we get what I want? What we want. All right. So this is the run we do, and it crashes. Okay. So let's see why. And let's see, and then let's figure out how to fix it. So we have here these index errors. Index out of range. This is probably the most common mistake or error in all of programming. Index out of range. Get used to this one. Well, you don't have to get used to it if you really spend time designing your loop before you code it. So let's understand why this happened. Let's do it on a small example. Let's say this one. If we really, because our code would crash on this as well, let me do it. ABC, we want to get AB star C. Okay, that's what we want, but it crashes. So let's see why. Okay, so at the end, first time we enter the loop, I is 0, and we concluded NS is exactly what we wanted currently. Next time we enter the loop, I takes the next number from a sequence, which is a 2. So we enter and we come to this line. Look what happens. Here I'm taking S of 2, which is C. That's good. So far, so good. It says take S of 2. But let's look at this one. This one is S of 3. But this, if you have an odd length, like here, S of 3 does not exist, or rather S of I plus 1 does not exist. So S of 2 is this last character, but S of 3, we are trying to access a character outside, well, not outside of the string, we're trying to access position after the last position in the string, okay? S of 4 does not exist in this, S of 3 does not exist in this string. So this is S of 0, S of 1, S of 2, S of 3 does not exist. That's what this means. You're trying to access indexes out of range. What's the range? 0, 1, 2 in this example. Okay, so that means that we have to fix something here in your loop such that you don't really enter, if you have an odd number of characters, you don't enter that last time, because otherwise you're going to try to access the element one, the one after. Okay, so in general, throughout computer science, I hope now you see none of this is guessing. If the goal is to guess, if the goal is to memorize, this is not going to work. You have to be trying to solve a problem, okay? And each of them has its unique things, right? If it's a new problem that you've never seen, you'll have to think to solve it. Okay, so here's a stopping condition. If you're going to memorize it and look at the patterns, this is the most common thing, is to stop at len of s. But you don't always stop at len of s, because in this case, if we stop at len of s, we would be in this position, and then I'm trying to x s of I plus 1 will be outside. Okay, so the solution that works in this case is that you stop in one before. Okay, you can spend some time trying to figure out why, but in this particular case, you don't want to take this last position. You stop at one before, meaning you don't want to produce the sequence that you want to produce is not going to produce exactly the last index. You're going to produce, the last thing you're going to produce is second to last index. That's the last time you want to enter the loop. Last time you want to enter the loop is when your index is second to last position in your string. And this usually happens if you're doing pairs. If you're doing pairs, you want to stop second to last, because if you stop, you produce, if you take a last position and enter the loops and you're doing pairs, this one is going to be, I plus 1 is going to be outside. Okay, so it turns out actually this len of I minus 1 works even, you can check that. It works, you can spend some time thinking about why it works. I'm not going to explain every single detail here because I want to show you little generalizations of this that will be very helpful for your assignment. Okay, so this solution, let's just see what happens. Does it still work for even? It still works for even strings, even length strings. Okay, let's see if it works for that. What we had the last time is that we had a crash. So let's see if we at least solve the crash problem in odd, when we had odd number of characters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, we have odd number of characters. We had a crash because we were taking the last positions and going to I plus 1. At least now we don't have a crash. Do we have a correct answer? All right, so let's look at the answer. Indeed, all the pairs are working. We have AB is BA, CD is DC, EF is FE, the stars are working, or ats, but we didn't glue G. Why? Why is G not there? Well, we didn't do it. You have to do it. Basically, if we have an even, even number of characters, all the pairs, loop will process all the pairs, there's nothing to do. If we have an odd number of characters, there's one more thing to do, which is, we said you take that last character and glue it at the end of the new string, okay? So once we're outside of the loop, we know all the pairs are done. And I need to figure out, am I in an odd situation? Because if in an odd length string case, if I'm in that case, I still have to glue that last character. Okay, you just test it. If length of a string S is odd number, meaning if remainder of division with 2 is not equal to 0, okay? So if S, that means S is an odd number. In that case, I have something else to do, which is to the new string, I have to add last character in S. And Python has these nice negative indices. Okay, so you get the last character by using -1. If you come from classical programming languages, let me call it that way, then negative indexing doesn't exist, but hopefully all of you by now know that len of S, that the last character is at position len of S -1 because we started at 0. Okay, so we glued that last thing. So let's see if we now have a correct answer. All right, A, B, C, D, we had everything correct except the G was not glued, and now indeed G is glued because we were in odd case. We had 7, remainder division of 7 and 2 is not 0. So we would enter here, and last character, which is G, was glued to the new string. And without it, the even case also works. Okay. Oh, why did I do this? All right, I want to show you how you can modify a little bit this solution such that it uses slicing. Slicing you have seen in, I don't know, maybe 2 lectures ago, of strings. It works the same for lists. You're going to see it in lists. It's super powerful. And in fact, if you keep slicing in mind, first of all, for your assignment, both for part 1 and part 2, really think, should I loop over the indices, over the positions in a string, or just characters in a string? For many of them, you really should be looping over the indices, over the positions. And then keep slicing in mind. It's going to make many of these things reasonably solvable and way less complicated otherwise. So don't have in mind, if you even, those of you who programmed before, don't get necessarily stuck in the way you've done it in other programming languages, because slicing makes it easier. For example, the last problem in part 2 is, I would say, very difficult. It's only 5 points, so it's like, you take it. If you want a challenge, you have it, but it's much easier if you use slicing. The one that is called square free words or something. Okay, so keep slicing in mind. So for that reason, I want to modify this solution such that it uses slicing. It's really just 2 lines that we're going to modify. But then that solution with slicing generalizes. You will see what I mean by generalize. It can solve more general problem than what I just showed you. Okay, so let's see what we wanted here. I wanted pairs. So the problem itself says you take a string and then give me a pair, which is just a slice of 2 elements, right? What is slicing? Slicing is saying, give me a substring starting here and ending here, right? So I'm saying, give me a substring of length 2, then give me another next one of length 2, give me next one of length 2. But this is exactly what slicing is for. Okay, so when we enter the loop here, look what I did. I said, if you're coming from other programming languages, this is perfectly natural, this line where we create a reversed pair. But instead, you could have just said, okay, what is it that I actually want? I want pairs, okay? I want pairs starting in some position. I want a slice of length 2. That's what pair is. I want a substring of length 2. Okay, so you've learned how to do this. I'm going to create a pair, okay? By taking, what do I want? I want to start at position I and go up to 2 later. Okay, so let's see what this is. This is a slice. Remember, you give it a starting position. I want a substring starting in I and going up to position I plus 2. So this is going to give me a string of length 2. Let's look at, first time we entered the loop I0. So this is like S of 0, 2. Okay, so this is a slice of length 2. You start at position 0, go up to position 2. So what was our running example? A, B, C, D, E, F. So at position, we go from position 0 to up to position 2. So what is that? Give me position 0 and 1. So it's going to give you a substring starting in position 0 and ending in position 1. That's exactly AB, right? So what's going to be stored here in this pair is exactly AB, but not reversed yet, right? Because I'm just saying, give me a slice. Now that I have that pair, I want to reverse it. Okay, but remember that slicing also, I showed you how you can reverse a string. So now this pair has a string that I want to reverse. Okay, so remember this. This reverses a string. Okay, it means start at the beginning, go, I'm giving you 3 digits. If I omit first and second, it means start at the beginning, go to the end, and the negative index means go from the back. So in fact, this means start from the back, go to the beginning, and because it's a minus, you go in the other direction. So this reverses a string, okay, slicing again. So let's actually see that. Let me demonstrate this. So let's do S is equal to A, B, C, D, E. Well, let me do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So this gives you a reversal of the string. So here I have a pair, I reverse it, and then I add it. So this is going to return a new string that is reversed. So this new reverse string, I'm going to glue it to my string that I'm building. I'm going to concatenate it, and then it becomes my new string. Okay, so that's all. This is really just 2 lines that I wanted to change. Let's first make sure it's working. Okay, so we had A, B, C, D, E, F, that's even number, that's working. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that's still working. Okay, so I'm specifying the size of a slice I want. If the size of a slice I want is, in this case, was 2, and I want to start at position I, then the slide, you go from I to I plus 2. Okay. So, and what are we really getting? First time we enter the loop, we are getting from 0 to 2. Next time we enter the loop, I is 2. So next time we are getting a slice 2 to 4, which is exactly what we want. Next time we enter the loop, I is 4. So we are going to be working with slice, this is 4, this is 6, 4 to 6. So we are getting consecutive slices exactly as we want. All right. So that's, oh, actually, let's make sure I'm really running again. I'm falling in the same trap. When you have 2 functions with the same name, it seems that Python is running the last one in the file. So let's really make sure that we were running the correct one. So version 2 with slicing. A, B, C, D, E, F. All right, that one's working, and the one with G. Not that this is a proof, by the way, that something is working to run it on 2 examples, but I'm not going to give you formal proof of correctness at this point. Okay, so that's, now that you've seen slicing, I want to show you how this generalizes wonderfully. Okay, and it's related, it's going to be helpful for part 1 of your assignment. Okay, so let's say I want to change this problem a little bit by restating it. Okay. By the way, this is kind of dangerous, what I'm doing, that I'm going to introduce a new problem, but I copy paste solution from a different problem, you know, because it's, you leave mistakes all over the place that don't apply for to the new problem. So I already had issues in the last class. So this time, hopefully, I'm not going to fall in the same trap, but I do not recommend this. That's my point. But I'm doing it for the purpose of speed because we have like 7 more minutes. So here's the problem that I want to solve. And it's related, not related. Think of this when you're trying to solve your problem number 1, part 1 of your assignment number 3. Okay, so the first problem said, take consecutive pair. First 2 elements, then the next 2 elements, then the next 2 elements, and so on. But there's nothing special about 2, right? I could have asked you, give me first 3 elements, reverse it, add a star if they have a vowel, otherwise add an at. Take next 3, add a star or an at. Take next 3 and so on. Or I could have said, take first 4 characters, reverse them, add a star and an at, next 4, reverse them, add a star and an at, and so on. So the problem makes complete sense if somebody else gives you the size of the blocks, right? Do you want to be taking 2? Do you want to be taking blocks of 2 that you're going to reverse? Do you want to be taking, by this I mean blocks of characters, 3, 4, and so on? Okay, so I want to write completely general scrambler, where in addition to the string, you are going to give me an integer. And this integer can be 1, 2, 3, and whatever. And that determines what is the size of the block that you're going to be taking. Okay, so let's see this on an example. So S is still a string, K is an integer. I changed the name of the function. Notice that I added K here, and therefore I should remove pairs. All right, K consecutive. Okay, I'm removing pair. All right, so let's understand how this should behave on an example. So if somebody gives me, let's do the same example, but with A, B, C, D, E, F. A, B, C, D, E, F, but this is 3. That means I want you to take 3 characters, reverse them, then add star or add. That 3 characters, reverse them, then add star or add. So that means I take, because it's 3, I take 3 characters, A, B, C, that's C, B, A. Then I ask myself, do I have a vowel there? I do, so it should have a star. Then I do D, E, F. Let me change this such that D, F, R, they don't have to all, just so. So D, F, R, I reverse it, R, F, D, and it doesn't have a vowel and it has an at. And then we try to continue, there is nothing else left. Okay, let's look at another example. Okay, let's say that this is 4. It says take first 4 character and reverse it. So it should be D, C, B, A. Take next 4. Well, I don't have 4 anymore. I run out of 4s. And as before, sorry, after I'm reversing, I ask myself, does this block of 4 have a vowel? It does. I add a star. I want to take the next 4, but there is no more blocks of 4. We are in that situation where there's a leftover, which is smaller than my blocks. When it was size 2, the only possibility that there is a 1 character left. But now we have 2 characters left. We just glue them. We keep the same rule. When we have leftover characters, where the number of characters left is less than the size of our block, so we cannot take new block, we just glue that block. So that's what I want. And for the case when the string has only 1 element, we do the same thing. Okay, all right. So let's try to do the dangerous thing, modify what we did. All right, so first thing is, let's try to figure out what the solution is. I should take first K characters, reverse it. So at the very beginning, so this part is true, still the same. I said, if you have less than 1 character, just return it. Then I create a new empty string where I'm gonna be adding stuff as I go. First time I enter the loop, I have some string and I have a number K. I should take K consecutive characters. I should reverse them and add them to the new string. Okay, well, let's look at this. That naturally speaks slices. So think of what you have to do in part 1. I can't exactly remember what but I think it's, instead of K, you have a D, right? You have blocks that you are taking. I'm not saying exactly like this. I would have to remind myself what you have to do, but it's so naturally, it screams slicing. I need a block of K characters. Okay, so I start at position I, and I want to take K of them. So when K was 2, I said I had start an I and go to I plus 2, but now I should just take a slice of K. So start at position I and go to position I plus K, right? That's going to give me first K character. This, first time I enter the loop, this is S of 0, start at 0 and go to K. So first time I enter the loop is going to give me first K characters of a string. It's going to give me a substring containing the first K characters. That's exactly what we want, okay? But then this is the same. It just says reverse that. Now that we have that, look at this. Reverse that. That's what we want. And let's look at that. That just adds a star if this pair, now it shouldn't be called a pair. I should call it something else, block. Let me call it a block. a block of K, block, I test, does a block have a vowel or doesn't have a vowel? Perfect. Okay, let's see if it's working. Well, by the way, let's look at the loop here. Do I really want to be jumping by 2? Remember, first I entered the loop, I started position I take K characters. Next time I enter the loop, where do I want to be? I want to jump over this K that I worked on. So I want to jump over by K, not by 2 anymore. 2 worked when K was 2 in the first example. So here I should be producing a sequence 0, K, 2K. So I'm jumping by 2. Okay. All right. This one here. Okay, let's leave this one for the end. Let's run this and see if this is working, at least when the length of our string is a multiple of K, when we don't have these leftovers. Okay, so that was, for example, here we didn't have a leftover. All right, let's see if it's working.
Sure, it's gonna crash.
Oh, let's see.
You didn't type.
What did I do?
You
Name
forgot
block.
the Allen block.
Where
Yeah.
did I see block? Where?
If
Oh,
has a-
block. Yes, it's gonna crash. Exactly. All right, so let's run this. All right, so now it's working. Let's see on some other example. If we put a 2, it's working. This makes sense, by the way, even if we put 1. You're just reversing this part that is reversing. It's giving you the same thing. Let's see. This is not divisible by 4. Well, where am I? A, B, C, D, F, 4. Yeah, you see it reverses it, and that's not what we want. So this part here, it enters, it's left with an FR, it reverses it, and then it tests that it doesn't have vowel. So it's not what we want. So we have a 4 here. So we have a 4 characters here, and we have a leftover 2. So there are 2 things to fix. Okay. First of all, I shouldn't be even entering the loop here for this leftover thing. So even this -1 was a leftover from when we were solving the case when K was 2, the previous example. So what you want really is to enter the loop as long as you have blocks of length K. So here, actually, because I'm running out of time, I'm not going to explain exactly. You play with it and figure out what's the stopping condition for general K, because when K is 2, you get 2 minus 2 plus 1, that's -1. You go back to that case. So let's run it. So at least this now shouldn't take this at all. All right. Okay, so now it's just taking blocks of 4. Let's add a bit of things. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's taking blocks of 4 as long as we have them, but then we leave the loop. Okay, so the last thing we have to do is how do we add this leftover thing? And I ran out of time. I'm just gonna give you a slice that gives you that. This is basically what left over after remainder of division with 4 in this case, and more general with K. So what you want to go to the end and return the leftover of that division. Okay, so let me see if this should work. This is the thing I haven't tried, but return, not return, sorry. I want to add that leftover thing, NS plus, then I do S, and then I do minus the remainder of the division of len of S and K. That's how many characters left. So I want to go from the back and take them. Okay, and when len of S is divisible with K, this should be 0, so there's nothing to add. I haven't tried this one. I tried an alternative version, so it should work, but let's see. What's this? Let's see, 4, 3, 2, 1. At, where did it get C? Okay, let me then go back to the version that I think it did work. Remainder of the division with len of s. I think this one worked. Okay, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, FR. FR, it didn't take FR. Anyways, again, I'm having a mistake. I should copy paste the solution that I had. Let me see. N of S is N of S plus, it's not on, that's not the one. Anyways, I'll fix it and I can't believe this is happening again. And I actually did it in the meantime, but let's see. This one here, that's the code I want to open. Flip consecutive pair. Flip K consecutive pairs. Well, that's the one I did. I don't know why it is now. Why am I having issue now? So maybe even that solution that I had wasn't exactly correct. Anyways, I'll fix it hopefully for real this time. And then so one ABC. Yes. Okay. So that is working. What did I do that is different? Len of S, reminder, addition with K. I'm not even sure that I see anything different. All right, so you take those last remaining characters, you take a slice. This is a slice. You say, give me those last, whatever is the remainder of division with K, give me those last characters. Okay, so that's what it, this is a suggestion, by the way. This type of solution was suggested by somebody in a previous class, because as I said in the previous class, I also did something wrong. Because actually I decided to do this lecture. I didn't do this lecture in previous years. I decided today I should do something like solve a problem in the class that is similar to what you have in assignments. Okay, so that's it for today.